It's 8 o'clock. We'll call our meeting to order. First up, we're looking for approval of the agenda. And support. You'll know if you have a printed agenda, you'll note that appointments are not there. It is on board docs. And there's also another appointment that didn't make the list. It's the Emergency Management Advisory Council. It's been an appointment that's been a carryover for some time. It will be for a term expiring 4 of 15. If we can show that as an agenda item also. And the one applicant that we do have an application on file for, as advised by our chair, is Tony Raguezo. So with that amendment, the maker of the motion okay with? Okay. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed the same. Motion carried. Public comment. You have 5 minutes, public, to give comments. Start out with your name, please. Not that we don't know you.
Contrary to popular belief, I'm Jim Shotwell. I've got my appointment for Lifeways will be coming up in April, and I'm going to be away for a little bit of that time, and I want to take the opportunity to come in and introduce myself to you and tell you a little bit about why I want to get back on Lifeways. Lifeways is an interesting board to serve on, to say the least, and I'm sure you're aware of the financial aspects of it. There's a lot more to it than just that, and one of the reasons that I want to be reappointed is I've been able to establish quite a network in the community dealing with Lifeways issues other than finance, but also in dealing with the finance. And just recently, I've been able to garner $12,000 in funds. Now, that doesn't sound like much when you look at a $54 million budget, but that $12,000 generates another 90% of Medicaid funds, because that becomes local funding, and that put together with other funds draws down a lot of the help that we need to take care of the underinsured and uninsured people. It pays for our jail diversion problems for some of the things. But the whole finance of Lifeways, I'm sure as you're well aware, is very convoluted through the states and federal government that we have to do. And it takes quite a period of time in order to become comfortable with that financing. Like I say, I've been there 19 years. I'm pretty comfortable with it, but it seems like every time an issue arises, I've got to learn more. And with my business experience and background, I think I offer a lot to that system. I don't want to take up your whole 5 minutes, Chairman. I do appreciate the time, and Commissioners, I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shotwell. Any other public comments? Feel free. You can give us your name, please, when you step up.
Hi, I'm Lori Stack. I'm the treasurer at Leone Township. I'm here to just introduce myself. I know there's a Region 2 Planning Commission appointment coming up, and I'm interested. I'm just getting my feet wet with all the boards. I'm on the DDA. I work on that Fifth Street, the improvements down Fifth Street in Leone, and the safe routes with East Jackson. So I'm just trying to get involved more, and I'm interested in Jackson County, and I got a 9 o'clock, so I got to run. But I just wanted to introduce myself.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we have the minutes from the December 9th meeting. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed the same. Motion carried. Next up, we have appointments. The one that we see listed, or the two, are the Region 2 Planning Commission. Current member is Leland Preble, did not reapply. Applicant is Lori Stack that you just met.
Make a motion to nominate Lori Stack. Support.
Motion and support. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed the same. Motion carried. Traffic Safety Commission, this has been a carryover for some time. Paul Garcia was the current member. Julie, was that one that you had talked to people about applying for, and did they ever actually apply, do you know? Or
She says she did.
do we have any applications for that one that you're aware of?
So maybe we should just hold over.
Hold it over again? Okay. Okay, and then thirdly, we have, as I mentioned on the agenda, modification, the Emergency Management Advisory Council. This would be for a term expiring April of 15, and Chair Shotwell advises that Tony Reggioezo has in fact applied and does have an application on file.
I'll make the motion to nominate Tony.
Motion and support. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. That's it for appointments. Region 2 Planning Commission, the biannual report, and 2013 Annual Planning Commission Annual Report.
Good morning, everyone. Region 2 has been busy over the last 6 months providing services to the county. Probably the most important thing to talk about was the initial research in putting together the Solid Waste Planning Committee, which is now meeting, has had several meetings, and is busy working on updating that, amending that document so that we're in compliance with the state regulations now that the incinerator has shut down. We've also been busy assisting the county with some Jackson 2020 activities. I'm serving on the steering committee representing Region 2 and the county. I'm also chairing the Arts, Recreation, and Culture strand and participating on the Healthy Store Coalition, which is done by the health department, but they've asked us for assistance from time to time. Economic development services. At our last Region 2 Planning Commission meeting, we just adopted the 2013 update to the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, which keeps entities within our 3-county area eligible to receive 50% grants through the Economic Development Administration. And we've also been busy and had an opportunity to receive a Regional Prosperity Initiative grant, which we have accepted, but without the pass-through money to SUMCOG for the realigning of the 2 MPOs. Transportation planning services include more work on the I-94 US 127 interchange, the completion of the yearly asset management activities that we're required to do by the state. Your report has a listing of the road projects for fiscal years 2014 to 2017 that are in the county's transportation improvement program, and also some work on the Jackson Amtrak station. And finally, there have been activities at the Sparks Foundation County Park. I helped out with park staff on some tree planting, and Steve is participating on the Cascades Falls ad hoc committee for the county. The other thing that I would like to talk about this morning briefly is that according to the Michigan Planning and Enabling Act, the County Planning Commission is supposed to submit an annual report to the county board every year. That was also attached to our biannual report. And since May, since the Planning Commission started meeting, they've looked at 11 different coordinated zoning cases, put together, started working on a master plan, got the notice of intent out for that, which we'll start doing in preparing in earnest in this year. Bylaws for the committee, for the commission, an update to the ordinance that created the Planning Commission, creation and continual update of a website. We've looked at what the ultimate goals for that the Planning Commission will have, and there's the county master plan that I talked about before. There are workshops that we hope to host and sponsor that would be open to all Jackson municipalities, and also policies that would foster coordination and cooperation among municipalities whenever possible concerning zoning and land use. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Commissioners, any questions? Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Grant. I appreciate all the work you do for the county and also the volunteer work you do in the community. I'm fully aware of it also.
Thank you.
It was brought to our attention recently at the study session that our Parks and Recreation Plan, master plan for the county, might be stale. Are you aware of that at all, or do we have a way, do we have to notify you when things need to be redone, or do you notify us, or how's the system work then on items like that?
The DNR usually sends out a letter to the municipalities, which they consider the county to be a municipality, and then we've usually waited for the communities to get a hold of us. But that's something that I'm more than happy to help update. The last time it was a joint plan with the city, which seemed to work well. I would encourage the county and the city to collaborate on that again, and I'd be more than happy to assist with that. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Grant.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your work. Sheriff, you're up, I think, with your Securus video visitation agreement.
Yes, sir. You have the document in front of you. I don't know how much of this you want explained or what we're looking at doing. Securus is our current vendor for what is our phone system. A vendor a couple of years back kind of abandoned us, left us hanging a little bit. We went with Securus. Securus has been a very reliable product and provided great service to us. They now want to install video visitation system into the both corrections facilities, which would enable people to, not only attorneys to remote visit at no charge, and potentially ministry to remote visit no charge, attorney-client type visits to inmates, and also enable us to not move the inmates quite so frequently. They're piloting actually a project with us, or the proposed project, where they would actually put some of the devices that they use for video visitation right into the cells. So we would move inmates less. The idea is to put all of the devices for the visitors into the facility at Channer Road, so that you've got a barrier-free location where there's no need for stairs and fully accessible by everyone, members of the public. Weeks like last week, as you know, we had frigid temperatures. We had people waiting in the alley to visit. If you've never been to Wesley Street to visit, which is where half of our visits take place now, it's not a very user-friendly environment. So this would change all that. It would also enable people to remote visit from their homes if they desired. They could basically, we'll call it Skype, into the system to visit relatives and loved ones in jail. And also this will enable us to focus more on the job at hand and not shuffle inmates 4 days a week. It would also open up the times when people could visit. They want a contract to 2019 to help offset their costs, which are upwards of $300,000 for all the equipment installed, and there is no cost to the County of Jackson for this.
Sheriff, just a couple of questions, and I did read through I think it was a PowerPoint presentation, but does this eliminate face-to-face through the glass altogether? Because in the presentation it looked like it was...
Yes, it would. There's a number of facilities. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Kalamazoo County, Kent County, Ingham County are already using this system. It would eliminate the quote-unquote face-to-face through the thick glass.
And that still would not cost the public if they chose to come here. It would just be the technology there, correct?
No cost to the public for their normal visits. They would just have to go to Channer Road, where there's ample parking and, again, barrier-free access to the facility. No charge to them for their routine visits. But anything over and above that, remote from home and that type of thing, there would be a charge for that.
Okay, and then we've got sufficient bandwidth, I'm assuming, for that on the system?
This system is on its own. They're running all the infrastructure. From what we're being told, this is not going to be on the county's network at all.
Okay.
And that would be my concern as well, because we don't have that kind of bandwidth available.
I would almost guess that they've got to use our internet if they're going to do remote.
They're saying they are not. And I think that's going to require some installation on their part again, but I don't know what that entails specifically.
And then if I read it correctly, there is income to the county from this after, what, 600 and...
Yeah, after a period of time, once they recoup what they have invested, and there's a break-even point at which they would share any revenue that might be gained from this.
And the cost to the public for remote visits, that's in the contract? We'd be able to see what that is or not? If somebody, for instance, in Novi wanted to
Sure.
remotely visit, there's a fee to them, correct?
That's correct.
Is that listed in the contract or not?
I think they've put a fee schedule out there, but it's not.
Part of the contract?
I don't have it right here in front of me. I don't know.
No, that's fine. Okay, that's all I have. Julie?
Thank you, Chair. You asked several of the same questions I had. So to understand, there will be no personal visits allowed anymore for family members or for...
That's correct. Well, but keep in mind what we're referring to as a personal visit is between glass. There's thick glass between them. So.
Correct. Okay. And would you be offering the visitation, the remote visitation, at any additional days and times, or will you stick with the same time period you've got right now?
We fully expect to open up much more wider than what it is now, enable more visits and at varying hours, because there'll be a lot less stress on our staff to try to accommodate. Currently, it's probably 4 days a week. Between like noon, 12:30 to 2:30, so that would expand to all hours. We would probably shut the system down 10 or 11 at night whenever they are supposed to go to bed, but it would be open from probably 6 or 7 in the morning till 11 at night.
All right. And then finally, I would really be curious to know what the cost is for the family members, because so now we're telling them you can't necessarily, come in and physically see. I understand there's a glass there, but if it's my loved one that's being incarcerated, same with my son being in the military, I'd much rather see him face to face rather than Skyping. But I can understand the technology piece of it, and I understand the savings to county taxpayers, so I don't have a problem with that. But I would be curious to know what the cost to the families would be. And also, recently I had a conversation with a woman whose son was incarcerated, and she shared with me that she didn't even visit with him on a regular basis, and I was surprised. She said it just didn't work with her work schedule. So my question to you would be, again, approximately, I'm not looking for an exact number, but what percentage of inmates don't have visitors in which an opportunity like this may increase?
Well, and that's one of the issues, that this will open it up, because obviously not everybody can get away in the middle of the day to visit loved ones in jail, and it would open that opportunity up. And again, those visits are all free. They're not, I'll put it in little air quotes, personal, but they are still, it's a visit. It's the system works well in other areas, other counties in Michigan, and again, it's a very reliable vendor.
Sarah?
I'm not sure how things work here, but would that system also allow for video arraignments and court dates? Can you collaborate with the courts?
It could permit for that. Mostly what I'm thinking, at least initially, you see a lot of attorneys are moving. Sometimes we move inmates downtown to accommodate attorneys, sometimes for hearings. We already have video visitation available, but this should make that even more robust.
Yeah, but
Yes.
for their actual court appearance, do you do
Yes.
video arraignments now?
Yes, we do.
And then you can continue that and just maybe do other hearings with this then?
Potentially, there still would be some movement of staff. The other thing it may open up for us is enable some of there's not much space down at Wesley, but enable some of our female population to receive educational opportunities from JPS, which they currently are not afforded. We might be able to use those locations to help with that.
John, did you have a question? No, I found the answer. Okay. And Dave, I didn't see if you had your hand up.
I guess it's kind of here, but and the fee schedule is I guess one of the things I'd like to see. But and it's none of my business probably, how's the company going to make and you say this is an experimental.
No,
This
that's
is one of the first places they're putting it in.
No,
New
they're
equipment.
trying something new with the equipment. They're putting some of the equipment directly into some of the cells.
Okay.
That's something they haven't traditionally done. We're trying to work with them to accommodate that. And again, all the infrastructure, all the hardware is theirs, and I do see the fee schedule is in here. It's $20 for a 20-minute visit. But again, you still get your visit each week for no charge. This is over and above if you have a desire to do more visiting with loved ones or something of that nature. And it's for people that are maybe out of town, it would be a lot more convenient than driving all the way here, which is mandated now for a visit.
Julie?
This agreement that we're signing, is it, what length of time, and is there an option that we could exempt out if it is not working?
It extends us to 2019. We were already out to 2016 for phones. This extends it, again, out 5 years to 2019.
So if we commit to this agreement and then determine that it's not working for our population or our families or our community, we're locked in until 2019? Correct?
Yes, except for we could probably always go back to regular visitations. You know, the system works. I guess that's,
Okay.
given my experience with talking with Ingham County and Kent County, the system works. I doubt we'll be in that kind of a situation, but
Okay.
it's still a valid question.
Okay, any other questions? Chairman Shotwell? No? Not going there? Vice Chair Duckham?
Morning, Sheriff. This will be on top, you said it will, on top of the normal daily visitation based on, it's based on social security number or something? No, name, alphabetical name,
You register, and there's a free visit to all the inmates once a week.
in person.
No. Well, currently,
Yes.
under this contract, we would encourage those folks to do that via video.
Okay.
Yes. Require. We would like to move them to a situation.
This is the first step in moving away from it in-person visitation?
Yes,
Is your goal?
yes. Because if you saw it happening, it's a very time-consuming process that is not efficient and not, I would argue that even at Wesley Street, I don't know, I think if you haven't been down there during visit times, it's literally, you are waiting in the alleyway while cars are coming and going to get in, and then we don't have an elevator for anyone to get up to the third floor. There's a lot of things that I realize there's the negative that you don't get this face-to-face visit, but on the other hand, you've got a lot of other perks that really help us. Both it helps the family, it helps us, I think.
So it'll be a 20-minute free, and then $1 a minute after that, basically?
Yes, but you would have to schedule. Again, you'd have to schedule it. The system enables the inmates to schedule times with loved ones to do it remotely from their cell, and at Chandler Road, it'd be from the barracks. So we wouldn't move those inmates any longer.
Now, I can proudly say I've never visited anybody down in jail in my lifetime, so don't intend to in the future. Thank you.
If you'd like to see it, let me know.
All right, thank you.
Mike, did you have any comments on it, and are you supportive of this, I assume, or you're sitting like you have a number of comments?
No, most of my comments have been answered in the actual agreement itself. I was a little concerned, to be frank, that you could not visit, but I suppose, we can cross that road down the road. There's nothing in the contract that we're entering into that precludes us from allowing someone to visit, is there?
No, but I will tell you that would be discouraged. My intent is not to have the visits continue, the face-to-face, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I could go into as much detail as you'd like or as little as you'd like, but there's a lot of reasons why that doesn't always work and why this is a better way to go.
We can talk offline, but my understanding was it was strictly a financial was the reason, we want to move away from this visitation because of the cost of moving people around and so forth. Is there more?
Well, there is that, but if you talk to a defense attorney in town, they would probably tell you this is a great deal for them because now they're not going to have to drive out to Channer Road to visit an inmate.
Well, I'm in favor of, don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of this program. I think it's a good program, a lot of merit. The only thing that causes me some concern, I was just thinking, put myself in that position, if I had a loved one there, to be told I could never go and see them through the glass would bother me. If it's a financial cost situation, I would want to be able to pay that cost, regardless of how crazy it is, to see them in person if I so had the money and was so inclined. But this precludes us from doing that or not, does it?
That would be strongly discouraged. I would say that would be a rare opportunity to do that.
But it's in your purview to decide.
I could make that decision, yes.
Okay, good. That's what I was getting at. Because I'd hate to enter into a contract which would, for some reason, 2 years from now, you've got a situation where you would like to do that, but you can't because the contract precludes that, but it does not.
No. And I'll double check and make sure prior to signing anything that
and I'm perfectly
that's
fine.
the case.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Sheriff, that raises just one more question for me. Then I think, if I understood it right, the plan is to have this equipment at Channer Road and have video visitations, have people go there and not come downtown, correct?
Correct.
Do we anticipate any pushback from city residents that may not want to travel to Channer Road?
There's that potential, but keep in mind now that there's no parking for them at Wesley Street. They would have to park closest, it would be across from the Y's where there's public parking or street side parking. And again, you've got the weather and a lot of the other issues. And currently, we have the availability of the space. You've been out there in the front lobby to do this. And I don't know. I guess there could be some potential pushback, but I would think it would be minimal.
If that becomes an issue, would it be that difficult to set up the video visitation system downtown or not?
Unfortunately, it probably would be. We have very little space to do that. There just isn't space downtown.
Okay, well, we're going to, I'm assuming, forward this to the full board, so we've got a week that we can ask more questions. I'm sure the sheriff will take our calls. Julie?
That's fine. The board docs does not say it goes to the full board, just so you're aware of that, so it needs to be amended. But two things then. There is room at Chanter Road. You have a location. Would it most likely be the training room or?
Nope,
Okay.
front lobby area, although there is space out there.
Okay, and when would you see this implemented?
I'm sorry.
When would you see this being implemented?
Probably as soon as the contract were signed, they would start working on bringing in the infrastructure and the hardware to do this. So we're kind of at their mercy because they're doing this nationwide.
Okay. I made reference earlier to someone I know that went to Chanter Road to visit a loved one. In that incarceration period, a family member was dying of cancer. And the mom shared with me they allowed the inmate to leave for a short period of time to spend time with that loved one before he passed, which was his father. That's a prerogative that you have, and again, in a case like this, a rare case like this, accommodations could be made for family members, again, depending on what laws, what their sentence is and such, but...
We certainly try to work well with people, but it's really not my prerogative. We have to get the blessing of one of the judges to do that. And in that case, I think Phil had a similar experience. Maybe it's the same one we're talking about, but...
No.
We always have to get the permission from the judges because they're sentenced by the judges to do that. But usually they're very cooperative.
Great,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions or comments? It is actually in board docs to move it to the full board, which in my opinion is where it should go anyway, but that'll give us time to talk more. If you look in the memo that attaches to it, it will. I can read it to you. It says, Agencies and Affairs Committee has to approve this motion to allow the request for the purchase to move forward to the Board of Commissioners for final approval, is what's in my board docs. And that's off the document itself, not just on the agenda part. But regardless, I think probably it should go to the full board anyway. So we can get a motion to that effect.
I guess I'll move to send it to the full board, even though I just soon approve it here.
Okay, motion and support. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Sheriff. You've got your year-end report now?
Yes. Lit up like Rudolph's red nose. Doesn't like that one?
I don't know. I never. It said it's installed.
Oh, you didn't do that. You had to push the magic button before you do that.
This one? Yep, first one. Okay.
All right. Pardon me? I don't see it, but I know how to do it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. I assume most people have had a chance to look at this as well, but we'll run through it real quick. The average daily population in our facility this year is 403. Intake was 8,309. It's a little lower than last year, but there's, I think, a variety of reasons for that. Our population has declined somewhat through the course of the year, even though we've taken on more MDOC boarders. But we have about 37 at times weekenders, which causes us or creates a need to make some of that population available. Still see the bulk of what we do here. We deal with a lot of issues related to medical and mental health. There are quite a few nurse calls, doctor visits, mental health visits from Lifeways. Our revenue, the numbers are still coming in, but we're going to exceed our revenues significantly this year. We're trying to do what we can to keep as many of those MDOC boarders in our facility as possible and try to increase that number slightly, although it creates a couple of other problems when we do that, and there's things we have to be concerned about, again, with the weekenders and some of the other sentencings we've got. Let's see. We get a modest amount, you can see, from Social Security Administration. For those of you that don't know, if someone's lodged at our facility and they're on Social Security, that Social Security money comes to us. So that's a revenue source we discovered a few years back that has helped a little bit. Commissary system, we've changed that quite a bit, so it's not on paper anymore. We can do it on the phones. We can do it a number of ways. There's kiosks that we're able to take care of some of the commissary issues. Again, this is a picture of the video visitation project. This is what you would see if you were to go and pay a visit to a loved one. Again, and you can see that you can do it from home. You can do it from, I guess they're at the library there. I wouldn't necessarily do it there. But body scanners, I just got an email this morning. Those are on their way here. Should be here in the state sometime today. I think you folks approved that project a couple months ago. Again, that's TSA, I guess, surplus, we'll call it. We would like to install one of those machines at Channer Road where we have a lot of movement, trustees and so forth, and try to eliminate the possibility of any contraband getting in the facility. We have 2 more inmates that have received their diplomas from JPS. I want to thank JPS for their efforts. Again, I'd like to extend that program out to some of our female population downtown. I think it's valuable. We'll see. I don't know if it'll be fruitful or not, but we're doing what we can to try to keep these people from coming back. You can see up slightly, about 500 more complaints than last year. Concealed pistol license applications still relatively high. We were averaging just over 100 a couple years ago, and now we're pretty steady at pretty close to 200 a month. Concealed pistol licenses, another 5,500 permits issued for handguns. Arrests, we're about consistent with the past few years, same with misdemeanor and civil infraction citations. OWIRS slightly higher. I don't know what to attribute that to other than people still haven't learned. We've got two fatal crashes we've investigated, and I'll use this opportunity to take the time to maybe, since I've got the attention of the commissioners and road commission, the fatal crash at Mackey plant this year. Mackey has approached me, and I told them I would approach you and either make the suggestion that we either study that area or minimally study that area, or potentially try to do something a little different out there, because you've got the high school Western down the street, and you also have Mackey, which gets out various times throughout the day. We've tried to increase traffic enforcement out there, but it gets pretty crazy when you've got that plant, which is hiring again, and they've just got a ton of people working there and working long hours, and with the highway so close. I don't know what the solution is, but it may be something for you folks to consider and maybe study and see if there's a solution to that problem. Some plants you see in the Detroit area have a light that only functions during times when business or when people are coming and going from the plant. But it's getting pretty dicey out there. It takes a lot of traffic these days during shift change. Also investigated fatal crash on 127 by Berry Road. Major crimes, child exploitation. This is a crime that Indiana either wasn't able or didn't maybe know exactly how to get to it. But for those of you that don't know, any crime that takes place via the internet, you can charge on either end. And this was between Michigan and Indiana. So we worked with the prosecutor's office, and he's already got one conviction, and the man that's been charged with the child exploitation is also here in our jail now, awaiting trial on that same thing. He was a middle school principal, by the way, down in Indiana. Numerous breaking and entering cases out in the Grass Lake area. We've identified suspects in those cases and issued felony warrants for them. Worked with Westland PD, Columbia Township PD, Lenawee County Sheriff's Office to work a series of, and this is a big deal because this is these church break-ins were occurring from Ohio all the way into northern Oakland County. As far west, we figure it's probably Coldwater, could be further, and numerous churches. That was their target. They broke into churches Sunday nights after the collections had come. They would break into churches, steal the money, steal whatever else wasn't nailed down. There's been people identified, and they're being charged as well. And still working on wrapping some of these up, but we had numerous break-ins, juveniles mostly, which makes things difficult. But there has been a streak of break-ins down in the south and west part of Jackson and Summit Township, and we've identified most of the suspects in those incidents. I want to say thanks to our dive team. Done a great job this year. Also called out to assist on Christmas Eve in that freezing cold to help Blackman Leone Public Safety recover a body from the, I guess it's a tributary to the Grand River at Wooster Road. Sad end, but at least there's some closure for the family, and that person was recovered. JNet stats are up there. I provide these because obviously we've got two members of the Sheriff's Office on the JNet's team. You would see marijuana is still a lot of what we do. It's not the focus out there at all, but crack cocaine seems to be making a comeback too. It's just, I don't know, it's hard to explain. The only thing I can tell you is whatever seems to be cheap and hot and heavy at the time and available, that's what people are going to. Heroin's still out there, although it doesn't seem to be nearly as bad this year as in years past. There's numerous, you guys are probably aware of it, but we've had a lot of, out in Leone Township, there was a large seizure of marijuana and properties and a lot of equipment and so forth that we believe are the proceeds from the sale and distribution of marijuana in Leone. JNet's still working that case, have a lot of involved a lot of other federal agencies to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that this is put to a close or put basically stopped. We've got there's basically a nationwide case that is just wrapping up. One of the deputies we had go to Michigan State Police, Andrew Tisch, was the kind of the point man on a case that took us all the way out to California and back. Numerous houses seized. It was a major operation dealing with drugs, guns, and in particular marijuana, but it ran out of the California area, and we sent him out there on at least 2 occasions to do investigating in California and assist those folks. Volunteers gave over 3,000 hours this year. That's Mounted Division, Marine Division, reserves. We also have office staff that come in and help with filing and so forth, and help make a lot of the events out in the county very successful this year. Deputy Beard, this past year, was awarded the Mothers Against Drug Driving Award for 71 drunks he arrested in 2012. He arrested another 54 this year. And you've probably seen Deputy Sullivan's picture. He's one of our detectives, done a fantastic job. Top 30 under 30 award winner, does a great job for us. He's working a cold case for us right now that I hope is going to yield similar results as we've seen from him in the past. E-ticketing, all the equipment is in. We're waiting for some updates from the vendor for software and integrating this system into our records management system. But I anticipate in the next couple months we should have that product up and running, and should eliminate a lot of the errors and a lot of the redundant efforts that are being made to log in all the information from tickets and so forth from the agencies countywide. Cell phone app has over 2,000 users on it now. We've integrated the app with our Facebook page so we can post things to Facebook, which will then generate an alert to the app. It's been very successful. We've captured 2 wanted people using the app. Somebody's seen the pictures on the app and called in, and also received a couple of texts for tips. Completely eliminated the tip line here locally. That was not, we were yielding about anywhere from 30 to 50 tips a year, not a lot of tips. We work with Crime Stoppers now. They have a very regimented process. They have a 24/7 line that we work with. They have the website. You can email them, call them. So that's worked very well also. And the state police has given us to use, it's called a 1981 Peacekeeper. It's a Dodge product, obviously outfitted. This is basically what it looks like. It's very ugly, but we hope for our countywide SRT team it'll help protect those folks. There's no cost to us. We have a local vendor who is willing to help paint it and decal it for us. So again, no cost to the county. The Michigan State Police has said if someday you don't want it, give it back. There's no obligation on our part. So it's another great cooperative with, yes sir.
What colors will this be painted? Are we talking United Nations blue or what?
We're thinking maybe a flat black. One in every crowd, I swear. Central Dispatch calls for service. You can see the volume of calls Central receives, not getting any less with cell phones. We get a lot of calls for any one accident. We could get upwards of 20 or 30 calls for a single property damage accident if it's on a busy thoroughfare. So obviously calls for service always on the rise. Those are fire calls. This is a kind of a rendering of what we think the individual stations will look like in dispatch. One of the vendors we've worked with, this is the design that we found the most desirable. We've visited numerous locations in the state of Michigan to try to determine what will work best for us, and kind of this is what it'll look like, very similar to what we have now, but they'll ideally be ergonomic units that you can stand, sit, move around a little bit to complete your dispatch function. And in the below right picture, you can see kind of a layout of what we figure it might look like in the Human Services Building, bearing in mind we can rearrange those, we'll call them pods, so that they could fit probably 8 to 10 stations instead of the 6 we have displayed there. Right now, we're working with 4, which is enough, but barely enough. But it'll enable us to do any future cooperatives and expand if need be. City Police, we're doing final testing today for their part of the radio system. They will finally be joining us on the countywide radio network, and we anticipate that probably happening before the end of the month. Their system went down last week when the flooding occurred in the city hall, and we provided them with radios for the short term. The fire service is getting texting to their smartphones to add a layer of redundancy to their network. Currently, fire pagers, if you're usually in building, or especially if you're in like a pole structure that's steel, something of that nature, it's very difficult for radio waves to penetrate. So we're hoping that this layer of redundancy will help get more fire personnel notified in the event of a page, whether it be medical or fire. 2 highlights for dispatch this year. Really, these are the bigger. They've done a great job all the way around. But on August 7th, we received a call for a missing Alzheimer's patient. We did a lot of work. The dispatchers did a lot of work. Sent messages out to even neighboring states, and it was the Ohio State Patrol who actually finally found the woman, I believe on the Ohio Turnpike, and got her back home. And then another incident which made national news, but out in San Diego, we had a call that there was a possible homicide that had occurred. The person that was calling was a relative of somebody that was, and this person that was calling lived in Jackson. Our dispatchers were astute enough to do a little research, found out what jurisdiction to get a hold of out in California, and out in San Diego they located the person who, fortunately, there had not been a homicide that had occurred yet, but there was an assault and there was a hostage standoff pictured here, and that was all due to the efforts of our dispatch staff in taking the extra step and making sure people were notified. Grant update, we used to get, the first day I was in emergency management back in, 03, we had a $796,000 check to work with. This year, that number is $54,818, so you can see that's diminished a little bit. We're working with local jurisdictions and people to decide where that money will be spent. Likely it'll be something to do with school, either whether it be notification or somehow helping schools and making them safer. That's been the talk so far. Some of the exercises in emergency management, a lot of you attended Public Officials Conference in January. We had tabletop exercise in March, dealing with, Lansing might have benefited from this, extended power outage. And then we had an animal plan workshop in June. And the emergency management, as you know, last year we moved Stephanie Gardenier, who was our emergency manager for a period of time. In October, she moved back into the city where she was paid from. Jason Brining is in emergency management now. He's taking all the necessary classes to get him up and running and have him certified. And that's all I have. If you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Sheriff. Commissioners, any questions? Vice Chair Duckham.
Thank you, Chairman Elwell. Sheriff, I want to make sure I understand this right. Is the city police department going to be on the same radio system as the county here on out?
That would be my desire. Yes, sir.
Is that a fact, or is it just a temporary deal?
No, if my conversations with Chief Hines are accurate, they want to get out of that business. A business that at times I would rather not be in myself, but
yeah.
They're going to be on our radio system. That should be permanent, and it should be, it'll certainly help, I think, mitigate some of the problems we've had in the past with communications countywide.
Well, when will this be fully implemented?
I can't put a specific date. I'm hoping by the end of the month. We have everything we need in place. They're testing the signals right now. They were on it briefly last week when theirs went down. So it's viable. I don't see the reason for a delay, let's put it that way.
Thank you.
But it's really not, it's going to be more in their control than mine.
I think it's going to be a big improvement. Thank you.
Sheriff, any long-term savings from that, knowing that they were working off UHF before and now they'll be VHF like the rest of the system? And I'm assuming there was different and separate equipment for that part of the operation?
The savings obviously would go to them. We will not recognize any savings. You know, they contribute a modest amount of money for dispatch operations each year, and obviously city residents pay surcharge money and even wireless money, that distribution. So we do get the revenue from it if that helps. But there's no direct savings to the county, no, sir.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
So I heard you to say that the additional revenue that's coming into the county is coming through in those other areas, not directly from the city. They're not paying the county revenue for
That's
using
correct. The city, historically, the city long ago was, maybe you don't recall, they left 911 for a period of time, and we moved 911 down in the basement of the sheriff's office on Wesley Street, and then they came back and they paid, again, a modest amount of money, and there's negotiating that took place. Probably Chairman Shotwell may remember some of it, but the previous Chairman Shotwell will remember more of it. They pay, again, a very modest amount that's been negotiated by people before me, but they're county residents, and I think it makes sense to have them on the same radio system.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
J.C. Dutt, looking to authorize our chair to sign the agreement for the reconstruction of Horton Road and Weatherwax. Joe Michalski.
I plead the fifth. This is just a typical step in the federal aid process where you receive your big contract from MDOT, and that explains how much the federal aid portion is and what the local agency's portion is, because then during construction, the federal aid portion goes into the contracts, and when the contractor gets paid, they pull that money out of there, and then we have to pay our matches proportion as it goes along. So this is just a part of that. We've done them in the past year. We did 5 last year for Folks Road in East Michigan, and our chip seal and O'Brien Road Bridge, and then Berry and Churchill. So this is something you've seen before. It's not anything new. And so we're just looking to get our chair to sign that contract, and Clerk Riska will sign the resolution, and we'll send it up.
Any questions? If not, we'd be looking for a motion.
I'll move to have direct the chairman to sign this agreement.
I'll second the motion to send it to the full board.
Motion and support. Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same.
We did open bids on Friday, though. Michigan Paving was the low bidder, $170,000 below the engineer's estimate. So it looks like the contractors are hungry, and that's why it's always nice to get these projects out in the winter time, and so they can fill up their schedules. And boy, we got some nice prices.
Thanks, Joe. Accounting software for J.C. Dutt. Jerry.
Over the past few months, we were looking at the accounting softwares both at Calhoun and at Jackson, trying to find the software that would work more appropriately for both agencies to be able to cross-mingle the not only our employees' time, but equipment, and also the inventory that we have. Looking into it, I'll be very honest, I was a Cogitate person. That's what I was used to, did it for 13 years. Once I got into Precision for a few months even, I noticed that Precision was much more advanced in a lot of areas that we're looking for. It's a Windows-based program, but outside of that, the ability to be able to track your employees, your equipment, and inventory, and with the kiosk system being able to allow your employees to enter their time at a little station at each garage will dramatically reduce the amount of time it takes for us to get through that payroll side of it. It's just a checks and balance then. So once the employee goes on the kiosk and enters their time, their equipment and their materials that they used, all the superintendent has to do is go and look through each person, okay it. It goes to payroll. Payroll only has to review it real quick for any errors that they might see and hit okay. There's no entering all this data and sitting there for a day entering people's payroll. So that's a huge savings that we're going to look at by doing that. The other thing is your inventory control. There's a small little iPad basically that your stockroom clerk just carries around to the parts, scans the barcode on it, it's immediately done, it's real-time inventory tracking, so you don't lose anything that way. So if anybody else goes back in there and needs a part, it's as simple as taking the pad, swiping across it and leaving. You don't miss as much. So I believe in 2 or 3 years this thing will start paying for itself just in those couple areas alone. And then the other side of it is it's got a tremendous budgeting software built into it, and it can be accessed. So if Latham or somebody else or Mike wants to get into it and look and see where we're at any given time, it's just a matter of hitting current run date, and you can see exactly where we're at for revenues and expenditures. It's far more advanced than what we're currently running out there. So that's our recommendation, and it will be allowing us to let Calhoun and Jackson enter their time on the appropriate county. So it reduces all that time that we're currently doing with our office staff of going back through and tracking and submitting bills back and forth. This will track that for us, and it'll take care of it. So it's going to reduce that time frame as well, and the accuracy. So it's a good setup, in my opinion.
Jerry, it sounds like it'll pay for itself. You said over time, but is it actually budgeted, or are we going to have to do a budget adjustment at some point in time?
This will come out of our capital improvement money that we've got set aside.
Questions? Dave?
Does this also handle the rental rate with the equipment and charges that are?
Yeah, your rental rate and everything's built right into that. Either program has that. Even Cogitate, you build in your rental rate. So yeah, everything's into that. It's the most advanced software for road agencies, at least that's out there.
Okay, we're looking for a motion that does. Oh, I'm sorry, Julie.
Jerry, just for clarification, on the memo it says to authorize the purchase of the accounting software for $50,000. Then on one of the other sheets that you had attached, you made us a nice table comparing the two programs. You had the cost of Precision software is $29,500. And then even if I add in the annual fee, the data conversion fee, I'm still not coming up with $50,000.
Then you get your kiosk stations that are going to get set up. So you get your kiosks, and then we're really not set exactly on how much training. We've got a budgeted amount of training that we know. It may take a little bit more or maybe a little less depending on how people pick up on it. But it's going to be...
So it's a combination of all those things there, because I see it's $800 a day for the training, so depending on how many times you have to bring them in and...
Right.
Okay, thank you.
To be clear, the figure I was looking at was $50,177. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and that's if everything comes in exactly the way we're looking at it. It could be a little bit more, it could be even a little bit less, depending if we don't need as many kiosks once we start looking at how employees enter. The thing is we'd like to get the kiosk set up at the main garage first and get maybe 5-6 people using it and see how it flows, and then determine from there if there's going to need 4 at each garage or 2 at each garage. So it could come down. Right now, we're looking at it. They base it upon every 7 employees of having 1 kiosk station, because that's what other road agencies are doing. So that's kind of where we're budgeted at right now.
Okay, well, I guess based on the figure that we have in the packet, it's over 50, so it goes to the full board. That's the motion we're looking for.
I'll move to send this to the full board with a recommendation for approval.
Motion and support. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, one other little piece that is significant in that software as well, is it also has the ability so that if people call in on any kind of a road issue, it goes into that accounting software as well. So it actually tracks service requests as it's put in the software. So we'll be able to give reports on our service requests, exactly how they came in, and that software handles that as well. So it's one
Or
more
does that
little
get
piece.
put in manually by somebody then, or would
Yes.
we be able to, okay, so you couldn't like log in online and do it as a resident?
No.
Okay. Julie, you look like you had one.
Right, just compared to right now, you have to actually find a live person to answer the phone and take the concern.
Yeah, and you'd be still doing it, but this, instead of having to go and if you wanted to like create reports on what was reported, we'd have to do that manually. Now, this software, you can just
That's
run
good.
it and you can actually, it'll track it for you.
Great.
Thank you, Jerry. Administrator Controller, Park Supervision.
We discussed this pretty thoroughly at the study session. Does anyone have any additional questions or concerns, or otherwise?
And if not, we'd be looking for a motion.
Yes, please.
I'll move to approve the request for the park supervision.
For support? Motion and support. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Misdemeanor defendant contracts, Administrator.
Mr. Brown, would you like to take this, please?
It's been about 2 years since you've seen these, because the last contract we did was 2 years. Several years ago, we worked out a new plan, which is the one you see before us, to where we would set the price and then ask those attorneys who are interested. We've had a lot more price control since we've done it that way. It's worked fairly successfully. We were concerned about the new legislation that the state passed with regard to these public defenders, but we believe the way we have designed this is in compliance with that. The state hasn't finished their system for approving those new contracts, but in talking with them, and we attended a session at MAC this past year, we believe we're in compliance with what they're going to do. So.
Adam, can you refresh my memory? Last time around, it looks like we're picking the attorneys also, or approving those, correct?
We handle the invitation for qualifications, and then we transfer it over to the district court judges, and they choose the attorneys. And that's really what the state wants to see, is they want to see a system between the County Board of Commissioners and the judges, the judicial branch. So that's the core component that the city wants to see.
Thank you. Other questions from commissioners? Questions? Okay. And this would be moving it on to the full board, looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion to move it on to the full board, this item.
Support.
Motion and support. Questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Claims. Looking for a motion on claims. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Other minutes and the February reporting schedule are there. And we're back to public comments. You have 3 minutes to address the board. Hearing none, we are adjourned.